Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. Believe it or not, this photograph is entirely backlit. The techniques used can be applied to a variety of subjects and don't need specialist cameras or lenses. You will need a large softbox and some cardboard. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is the subject. And this is just some lilies that I've got in a vase here. Now I've already placed a black cloth on this table just to stop any spurious reflections, etc. So to photograph these, I'm not actually going to leave them in the vase because I find it easier to use one of these. This is a retort stand and it allows me to position the flowers quite precisely. I'll show you what I mean. So with this retort stand, what I can do is place the flowers in the clamp that I've got here, and that allows me to position these very precisely. I'm going to put them right at the very back of the table here, something like that. And at this sort of angle, I think that looks quite nice. Okay, so we can dispense with the vase and we'll set up a camera position. Now the camera that I'm going to be using is this medium format camera, and this is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to follow along and see the results. Now on the front of this I have a 120mm macro lens. Now I don't need the macro function, but what I do need is something relatively long. So the equivalent for this on a full frame format camera would be something like a 70mm lens. So nothing exotic. Okay, so I think I need to be around here somewhere. So I'll just look through the viewfinder and we'll set up the shot. So I'll just go for a rough focus, probably something like that. And I think I want to be a little bit further down and a bit further forward. So about there. So all I need to do now is place a tripod underneath the camera at this position. Okay, so with that now set, what I can do is just turn the camera on. The software has recognized the camera, so I can show you the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. So right now it's in a full manual mode. I have a shutter speed of a 30th of a second, ISO 100, and at the moment I've got an aperture set of f4. Now that's almost certainly going to change, and so is the shutter speed. But with those settings, what I can do is just use the house lights just to get a test shot. So what I'll do, just grab an image and we'll just see what we get. And there we are. You can see colour balance is a bit off, the exposure is a bit off, but it gives you an idea of the type of image that we will be getting. And I think the focus is a bit off as well, so what I can do is just go to live view and we'll just zoom into that image a bit, change the focus with the controls in the software here. Just bring that into a nice focus. You can see the depth of field is actually not very big. There we are, somewhere around there looks good. Okay, with that size done, I can get rid of live view. I'll increase the aperture to what, f8? Now that's a two-stop change, so I'll go from a 30th, a 15th would be one stop. It's a bit dark anyway, so I'll go for what? I'll go for a 1/4 of a second and see what it looks like now. There we are, so that's a bit sharper and a bit brighter under the house light conditions. I think we're about ready to carry on and set up the rest of the shot. Now in the original image, the background was black. Now that was achieved just with a simple flag. So what I've done is just put this C stand just in position at the back here. I'm just going to hang a flag on that. And you can see that the flag is really close. It's actually touching in places. And I've done that on purpose so that when I come to light this, I can get the light to spread round. You'll see what I mean as I carry on. So just for now, once again, we'll just grab an image and just see what difference that makes. There we are, and you can see that the flag here isn't covering the whole area, but it's covering the bit where the flowers is, which is what we want. Okay, so the next thing would be to set up flash. Now I did mention at the beginning that one of the things that you will need to do this is a large softbox. So I'm going to use this one that I have at the back here. This is a 5-foot octabox, and I'm just going to put that on a stand at the back here, very close to this flag. Okay, so there we are, and you should be able to see that this is very close to this flag and the flowers. And the idea is that the light from this will actually wrap around the flowers and illuminate them purely from the back. I'll just move that flag ever so slightly. I think it just needs adjusting a bit. There we go. Okay, so with that in position and just at an arbitrary energy level, what I'm going to do is just change the shutter speed here from 1/4 of a second, which is what I used for capturing the image under these lights, and I will change that to 1/125th of a second, the flash sync speed for this camera, and that should cut out most of the ambient light in the studio here. So just to make sure, without the flash on at the moment, I'll just grab an image and see what we get. And there you are, you can see there's a very slight ghost of an image, but nothing to be concerned about. Okay, so with that done, I'll just set the flash to an arbitrary energy level and we'll grab an image. Okay. And there we are, you can see we're getting a bit of an image on here, so it's all starting to look okay. I think one of the things that you should be able to notice in here is we're getting an awful lot of flare. Although it's a black cloth, isn't actually black. It's appearing more of a dark grey, as you can see from the numbers at the top of the screen here. So that degradation is usually down to flare, and that's down to contamination from all this white area entering the lens. Now the normal way to get round that is to put a lens hood on your lens. So I'll do that and we'll just show you what difference that makes. There we are, so the lens hood is on. We'll grab it again. Now hopefully you should be able to see that there is absolutely no difference between those two images. The first one and the second one. So you need something a bit more effective, and that would be one of these. So this is where a piece of card comes in, and this is literally just a piece of card, and I've cut a hole in the center of the piece of card which matches the aspect ratio of the sensor in the back of the camera. So this is known as an aperture mask, and what I'm going to do is just place this in here somewhere, and the exact placing is a little critical, so I'll probably do that using live view, and it will then stop all this light entering the lens, and it is very effective. So I'll just set that up on another stand here, just in front of the camera, and we'll start up live view and see if we can get it in something like the right position. Okay, so now you should be able to see that as I move this mask from side to side, you can see it moving on the screen there. So it needs to be about there somewhere. I can get rid of live view and we'll capture another image. There we are, and immediately you can see the difference between those two images. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. So it's really made the background go dark, and it's also increased the contrast on the subject itself. And this really gives a really nice light. You can see from this that it's picking out all the aspects of the translucency and also the quality of the leaves, etc. Okay, so next thing to do, have a good look at the image and just decide on the depth of field that's required. So I'm just going to zoom in a little. I might take that a little more. There we are. You can see that at this point these are all very sharp, but the background's going slightly out. I could do with a bit more depth of field and just to move the focus point. So I'll just make those alterations. I'll go from an 1/8 to a 1/16. Now that in itself is a 2-stop increase, so what I need to do is add 2 stops of energy to that light. So I can just do that from the flash sync trigger, which on this camera is built in. So I'll just bring up the flash sync trigger, we'll add 2 stops. There we go. And the other thing was just to adjust the focus, which I'll do through live view. So we'll just zoom into the center of the image. And I just want to adjust the focus back a little. I think that should do. And with that, we'll get rid of live view. And I'll grab an image. Yes, that seems to have improved things a bit. If I just zoom all the way in now, this is all in focus, which is good. And the background's in focus as well. Excellent. I'd just like to just check the white balance. And with a subject such as this, it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter anyway, as I'm capturing this in a raw format, so I can always adjust it later. But since this is a calibrated monitor, I like to be able to assess the image properly. So I'll just take a sample of a grey part of the flower here. Something like that. That's better, I think. So the last thing I'd like to do is just maybe increase the exposure, maybe just by half a stop. So I'll just do that and we'll see what difference it makes. Yes, that's quite nice. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. Now the other thing that's probably making a bit of a difference is the aperture mask itself. Because as I said before, on one side it's white. And that white side is facing the subject at the moment. So if I just swap this round and put the black side to the subject, it may make a difference to the way it's lit. So that'll just need to be placed in position again. There we are. And without changing any of the settings, I'll just grab that again. There we are. And you can see that there is a slight difference between those two. There's more contrast in this one. I haven't got quite as much fill-in on the front of the flower here as I have on this image. So it has made a difference. So it's just the attention to detail really. But as for actually capturing the image, that's it. So what I'm going to do now is export this and put it into Photoshop and just do the bare minimum of post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and this is the file of the image that I captured earlier. So the first thing I'm going to do, as usual, is just make a copy of this. So I'm just going to go onto the background layer here, and I'm just going to right-click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call this Backlit Lily. We'll just click on OK, and Photoshop has made me a new document, so I can now close down the camera original. I've always got that to go back to. This is what I'll be editing. Right, so the first thing that I actually want to do is just do a bit of a global adjustment just to make sure that this background here is actually black. If you watch the numbers up in the corner in the info section, you can see that they are hovering around 2 or 3. So it's not actually completely black. So what I want to do is just add an adjustment layer, and I'll use a levels adjustment, and I'll just reset the black level. So using the eyedropper tool, just go onto the background and just click the mouse to reset that. And there we are. Most of the time now it's at 0, which is good. Okay, so that's just made a very slight change. So that's with the effect and that's without. Okay, so now that is set and this background is actually black, the next thing to do would just be to get rid of the mask, which I've left in the picture on purpose. So what I'm going to do is just add a new layer, and I'm just going to paint onto this layer with a black paintbrush. So I'll just make sure that the foreground colour is actually set to black, find a paintbrush, and we'll just paint that out. There we are. So with that done, the last thing I want to do is just do a crop. So I'm going to be using this for video, so I've got a specific ratio of 16:9, and I think I'm just going to tighten that up ever so slightly and maybe rotate the image a little. Just like that. And there we have it. So by using an aperture mask, it's possible to backlight a subject, keeping the background completely black, and also light the translucent elements within your subject. And I think overall that's worked rather well. Okay, well, I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.